everyone. So today's topic for the first CMA is management of acute diarrhea in adult patient, and the speaker is Dr. Upendra Gupta. He is MBBS, MD and DM from very prestigious institute IMS BHU Varanasi, and his main interest of therapy is inflammatory bowel disease and liver diseases. So I request Dr. Upendra Gupta to please proceed.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you all for the first CME, morning CME of this session. And now I will request everyone to stand up for doctor's prayer so that we can proceed to the session. Sarve bhavantu sukhna.
Sarve bhavantu sukhna.
Sarve santu niramaya.
Sarve santu niramaya.
Sarve bhadrani pashyantu.
Sarve bhadrani pashyantu.
Ma kaschit dukha bhavet.
Ma kaschit dukha bhavet.
Na toham na kame rajyam.
Na toham kame rajyam.
Na sargam na punarbhavam.
Na swargam na punarbhavam.
Kame yuktaptanam.
Kame yuktaptanam. Praninam arthanashnam.
Thank you.
Very good morning to all. Thank you, sir, for giving me an opportunity to present a talk in this session. Today my topic is approach to acute diarrhea in adults. So diarrhea basically derived from a Greek term, and which means to flow through. Basically diarrhea is a symptom, not a disease. So we have to analyze the diarrhea, and it's a common season for diarrhea in our OPDs. Diarrhea defined by if there is 3 or more bowel stools in 24 hours, then it is considered a diarrhea. According to American College of Gastroenterology, diarrhea is classified into 3 groups. It could be acute diarrhea if symptoms of loose stool persist for up to 14 days, and if symptoms persist between 14 to 30 days, then it is persistent diarrhea. And we as a gastroenterologist commonly face chronic diarrhea if the symptoms of diarrhea persist over 30 days. So basically the classification of diarrhea is important because the management and the etiology is different. So the pathophysiological mechanism of diarrhea, there are 3 basic mechanisms of diarrhea. First one is secretory diarrhea. It is due to increased active secretion or inhibition of fluid absorption, but there is no structural damage. It is a well-known etiology is cholera toxin stimulating anion secretion. That is outbreaks of cholera, basically a classical example of secretory diarrhea, and most of the acute diarrhea has secretory diarrhea. Another mechanism is osmotic diarrhea due to increased influx of water into bowel. The classical example is maldigestion and malabsorption, and it is related to ingestion of food or offending agent, that is laxatives. So we commonly use laxatives in OPDs. So most patients may present with overdose of laxative, and the mechanism is osmotic diarrhea. And third one is inflammatory diarrhea. It is due to damage to mucosal lining, which leads to loss of protein-rich fluid into bowel and decreased ability to absorb these fluids. So it usually caused by bacterial or may also caused by viral or parasitic infection, and we commonly face IBDs, tuberculosis and colon cancer as a cause of inflammatory diarrhea. So coming to the today topic, acute diarrhea. Diarrhea. The most common etiology of acute diarrhea is infectious. Non-infectious etiology is less frequent. In our country, infectious causes of acute diarrhea is largely related to contaminated food, water supplies and poor hygiene. The acute diarrhea, infectious causes of acute diarrhea is most commonly due to virus, and less frequently we see due to bacteria, and other parasitic infection may present as acute diarrhea in our countries. Non-infectious causes of acute diarrhea includes medication side effects. So we have to take proper history of any chronic medication use or any other chronic pathology that may lead to acute diarrhea. Basically, acute diarrhea classify into non-inflammatory acute diarrhea or inflammatory diarrhea. Inflammatory diarrhea is mostly due to viral or bacterial. It has milder course, and another one is inflammatory diarrhea that has severe courses and mostly due to invasive or toxin producing bacteria. So we can classify acute diarrhea into two groups, non-inflammatory acute diarrhea or inflammatory acute diarrhea. So non-inflammatory diarrhea is usually due to virus, and it could be also due to bacteria or parasitic infection, but inflammatory diarrhea is generally due to toxin producing or invasive bacteria. The pathophysiology of non-inflammatory acute watery diarrhea is due to secretion of intestinal fluid into lumen due to toxins producing by virus or bacteria. So, and inflammatory diarrhea is mainly due to disruption of mucosal integrity, which may lead to tissue invasion and destruction. So the history and examination findings: in case of non-inflammatory diarrhea, nausea and vomiting may be predominant symptoms, and patient may present some abdominal pain, and the stool volume is large in non-inflammatory diarrhea, and there is no history of blood in stools, and the stool is mainly watery in consistency. But in case of inflammatory diarrhea, patient may present with fever, abdominal pain, tenesmus, and the stool volume is smaller in case of inflammatory diarrhea, and blood is a marker of inflammation that is present in acute inflammatory diarrhea. So if we do stool examination, then we can see fecal leukocytes in inflammatory diarrhea that will be absent in non-inflammatory diarrhea. The common pathogens that causes non-inflammatory diarrhea is enterotoxigenic E. coli, Clostridium perfringens, Bacillus cereus, Staph aureus, some virus like rotavirus, norovirus, protozoa like Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and Vibrio cholerae. In case of inflammatory diarrhea, the common pathogen is Shigella, Salmonella, non-typhoid species, Campylobacter jejunum, Shigella toxin producing E. coli, Clostridium difficile, and amoebic colitis or infectious Entamoeba histolytica. The non-inflammatory acute diarrhea has milder disease course, and it usually managed in OPDs and with oral fluid and symptomatic treatment, but the inflammatory diarrhea has generally more severe disease, and we have to take them seriously. Coming to the inflammatory acute diarrhea, it has more severe course, as I said, and usually caused by invasive and toxin producing bacterial strains, basically due to mucosal break and tissue destruction, and patient present usually with fever, abdominal pain, tenesmus, and blood in stool is a marker of inflammatory acute diarrhea. So commonly with history we can differentiate between non-infectious and non-inflammatory and inflammatory acute diarrhea on the basis of only if patient gives history of blood in stool. The common pathogens that I already said causing inflammatory diarrhea is Shigella, Salmonella, Campylobacter, C. difficile, Entamoeba histolytica, and Yersinia. Now coming to the approach to acute diarrhea, so we have to take proper history and examination, that is a part of any diagnosis. So we have to ask in our history, we have to ask some mandatory questions: what is the duration of diarrhea, what is the frequency of stool, and stool consistency, whether it is watery or blood mixed stool. If blood, then what is the amount of blood, if there is pus or any other secretions in blood, and if we have to ask about whether it is associated with pain abdomen, and whether nausea and vomiting is predominant or not, and there was history of fever or not, and tenesmus that seen in that suggests rectal symptoms. And other relevant questions that we have to ask: whether any ingestion of recent ingestion of infected food, like raw or contaminated foods, raw uncooked chicken or fish, and there is any history of recent travel history, recent sick contacts or daycare visits or daycare admissions, we have to also ask about recent antibiotic use, new drug or laxative use that may present simple acute diarrhea. And after asking these, we have to ask about dehydration, that is a major component of acute diarrhea. So we have to ask about patient thirst, dizziness, and urine output is very important, that is a marker of dehydration. So we should always ask about urine output in case of acute diarrhea to assess the severity of dehydration. If ask about headache and fatigue, that may be common due to electrolyte disbalance. And now basically physical examination is we have to do physical examination to assess volume depletion. So we have to see the patient pulse, blood pressure. We have to also look for postural blood pressure, so we can assess the volume depletion. Some definitions of hypovolemia, that is early hypovolemia. If there is no sign and symptoms of hypovolemia like thirst, restlessness or decreased urine output, then we can say it is a early hypovolemia. Moderate hypovolemia is if patient may have increased thirst, restlessness and irritable behavior and decreased skin turgor and shrunken eyes, then it termed as moderate hypovolemia, and according to WHO it classifies as some dehydration. And the severe dehydration is if patient has diminished consciousness, lack of urine output, cool and moist extremities, rapid and feeble pulse, low or undetectable blood pressures. These patients we have to cautious and we have to admit in ICUs or in our wards, so we can manage with IV fluids and IV medications. Some clues to diagnose acute diarrhea. If patients is afebrile and complain pain abdomen with blood diarrhea, then it could be Shigella toxin producing E. coli, that is common. And only patient present with bloody stools, then it could be Salmonella, Shigella, Campylobacter. These are some bacterial infections which may present with blood stools. And patient present with crampy abdominal pain and history of consumption of untreated water, then it could be a protozoal infection due to Giardia. And if patient give history of consumption of food like fried rice, then there is possibility of Bacillus cereus that we commonly see at a food poisoning. And raw ground beef or seed sprouts, then it could be due to Shiga toxin producing E. coli. If there is history of raw milk ingestion, then it could be due to Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria. And history of seafood ingestion, then patient it could be due to Vibrio cholerae, Vibrio parahemolyticus. And if it is patient give history of uncooked beef or pork or poultry food, then it could be due to Staph aureus, Clostridium. There is list of some bacterial infection that could be diagnosed by doing stool cultures, and we have to treat accordingly. And if patient have history of exposure to day care center, then it could be viral disease like rotavirus, Cryptosporidium, Giardia and Shigella. And very importantly, if history of hospital admission, then C. difficile infection is common. We have to think about C. difficile infections. And in AIDS or immunosuppressive patient, we have to look for protozoal infection that are common, may present with acute infections with significant weight loss. Some protozoal infection may present acute diarrhea in immunosuppressive patient like Cryptosporidium, Microsporidia and Isospora, and some viral infection like CMV. And other clues like if patient has history of recent antibiotic used within last 3 months, then we should also think about C. difficile infection, because C. difficile infection is commonly early acquired in hospitals or after use of antibiotics. So we should think about C. difficile infection. And rice water stools, if patient give history of watery rice water stool, that is classical example of cholera that is caused by Vibrio cholerae. And some food poisoning is due to Staph aureus and Bacillus cereus. Patient gives history of acute or abrupt onset within 6 hours of ingestion of food and present with mainly vomiting and diarrhea. And if symptoms occur within 8 to 16 hours, then we have to think about Clostridium perfringens that mainly present with diarrhea. In case of Staph aureus or Bacillus cereus, the predominant symptoms is vomiting, that is acute gastroenteritis, but in case of Clostridium perfringens food poisoning, the main symptom is acute diarrhea. The travel history is very important. We have to ask about recent travel history. The most common cause of traveler's diarrhea is enterotoxigenic E. coli. Other possibility of other virus like Shigella, Salmonella can also cause travel's diarrhea. If patient went to Nepal, that giardia is common in Nepal. To go for diagnostic test in acute diarrhea. So majority of acute diarrhea is self-limited, so diagnostic test is usually not indicated in our settings, but in some cases we have to go for diagnostic test, like if patient have severe dehydration and if symptoms lasting for more than 7 days, patient give history of blood in stools, and patients have persistent fever, patients have HIV or any immunosuppressive therapy, and in cases of suspected nosocomial infections and hospital acquired infections, if patient age is more than 65 and with significant comorbidity, then we have to early investigate in case of acute diarrhea. But most of the cases of acute diarrhea is self-limited, so diagnostic test is not indicated or required. So common diagnostic test in acute diarrhea is routine microscopic of fresh stool. So we can see whether there is any fecal leukocytes, that is sign of invasive bacterial infection or inflammatory acute diarrhea. So we go for if patient in stool examination, if there is numerous fecal leukocyte, then we send stool for culture and sensitivity. And if microscopic evidences shows amoebic trophozoites, then we have to manage accordingly, as diagnosis is amoebic dysentery instead of shigellosis. Cholera can be diagnosed by using dark field microscopic. Dark field microscopic, we see motile vibrios as a shooting star by microscope in dark background. C. difficile infections can be diagnosed by simple stool examination stool examination to look for C. difficile toxin A, B and GDS. If patient has history of antibiotic use within 3 months or hospitalized patient that having unexplained acute diarrhea, then we should think about C. difficile infections. Endoscopy, usually endoscopy is not required in acute diarrhea. Mainly we do in chronic diarrhea. But in cases of patients with acute diarrhea not having clear diagnosis and patient is not improving after empirical therapy and his symptom is persist, then we have to consider lower GI endoscopy like sigmoidoscopic or colonoscopic in cases of acute diarrhea, but usually it is not required. Now coming to the treatment, the first step of treating acute diarrhea is rehydration. Basically most patient of acute diarrhea is complicated due to dehydration. So in children and in adult in older age, we have to always look for hydration. Even in adults we have to look for hydration, that is common complication of acute diarrhea. So we have to manage with oral rehydration solution for if patient has moderate or non hypovolemia according to WHO, and adult with severe hypovolemia we should give intravenous fluid. The fluid of choice is ringer lactate that contain mainly more potassium. So because in acute diarrhea there is loss of more potassium and other electrolytes, so we can give either ringer lactate or 5% dextrose solution. And early feeding is important in case of acute diarrhea, because early refeeding decreases intestinal permeability and which caused by infections and reduce illness duration and improves nutritional outcome. So early feeding is important. We need not to do put patient NPO. Next treatment line is antidiarrheal medications like anti-motility drug like loperamide that may reduce duration of diarrhea in acute watery diarrhea. Loperamide may cause dangerous prolongation of patient in bloody or inflammatory diarrhea. So we should use loperamide very cautiously in case of acute inflammatory diarrhea. But in case of acute watery diarrhea, we can use loperamide to reduce duration of diarrhea and symptoms. Another anti-secretory drug that is risacodratril. We can safely use risacodratril in case of acute watery diarrhea. The dose of risacodratril is 100 mg TID that we use, and the dose of loperamide is 2 mg TDS, or up to 16 mg. We can use up to 16 mg per day loperamide. Next, antibiotic therapy. Acute diarrhea is, as I say, mainly it is a self-limited disease and usually caused by viruses. So antibiotic therapy is usually not recommended in most of adults in non-severe and acute watery diarrhea. But in case of inflammatory diarrhea, antibiotic therapy is recommended. But in acute watery diarrhea, antibiotic therapy is recommended if patient is older than 65 years, patient is immunocompromised, patient is in sepsis or severely ill, then we should consider antibiotic therapy. And according to available guidelines, some antibiotic like ciprofloxacin and metronidazole can be used for up to 5 days. These are some antibiotic according to bacterial infection. If we found Campylobacter infection in stool culture, then antibiotic choice of antibiotic is erythromycin 500 mg once a day for 3 to 5 days. For C. difficile infection, the proven drug is metronidazole, but we can also consider for oral vancomycin 250 microgram QID. So if in stool culture we found enteropathogenic or enteroinvasive E. coli, then ciprofloxacin is sufficient. And for other E. coli, ciprofloxacin and oral fluoroquinolones is sufficient as an antibiotic therapy in acute diarrhea. For Shiga-taxing E-producing E. coli, there is no need of any antibiotic therapy. We should manage with oral rehydration therapy and symptomatically. For Shigella, ciprofloxacin is sufficient. And for Vibrio cholerae or cholera, the drug of choice is doxycycline, but we can use fluoroquinolones and other drugs. For protozoal infection, in case of immunocompromised patient or HIV patient, if patient we found Cryptosporidium by stool examination, then there is no need of any antibiotic therapy. We just improve the patient CD4 counts. That will improve cryptosporidial infections. In case of cyclospora or isospora, we have to give cotrimoxazole for 5 days. In case of Entamoeba histolytica, we have to give metronidazole, that is drug of choice, 750 microgram thrice a day for 5 to 10 days. Plus we have to give oral therapy, oral luminal agent, that is permomycin, 25 to 35 mg per kg per day for 5 to 10 days. For giardiasis, metronidazole 250 to 750 mg thrice a day is sufficient for 7 to 10 days. For microsporida, that is a protozoal infection, albendazole 400 mg twice a day for 3 weeks. Microsporida is not common in immunocompetent patient. It commonly seen in immunocompromised or its HIV patients. So now coming to the role of probiotics in acute diarrhea. Basically, probiotics stimulate the host immune system and it compete for binding sites of intestinal epithelial cells. So we commonly give probiotics in acute diarrhea, but there is Role of probiotics in acute diarrhea in case of traveler's diarrhea, antibiotic associated diarrhea, and but after search I found Infectious Diseases Society of America recommends probiotic in both adults and children with both infectious or antibiotic associated diarrhea to reduce symptoms and severity of duration. So we can use probiotics in acute diarrhea in our settings, and most studied probiotics are Lactobacillus rhamnus and Saccharomyces boulardii that has most effective in case of acute diarrhea and lead to reduction in disease duration. We can use probiotics as an adjunctive therapy in case of acute diarrhea to reduce the duration of disease. Now coming to the prevention, how to prevent acute diarrhea. We have to promote hand washing with soap, ensuring the availability of safe drinking water, appropriate disposal of human wastage, and safe handling and processing of food, and control of flies.
ये क्वेश्चन जो भी है सभी लोग कोशिश करेंगे कि बिना बोले आप लोग हैंड रेज कर लेंगे और डॉक्टर पांडे सर विल सेलेक्ट who has to answer, right? So the first question is most common cause of acute bloody diarrhea in adults. Option A, viral, bacterial, protozoal. You have to raise your hand. You have to raise your hand. So the correct answer is
Bacterial. That is Shigella.
सर के लिए एक बार जोरदार तालियां. Thank you, sir. So second question is consumption of fried rice induced acute diarrhea is caused by Shigella toxin. You just raise your hand. You just raise your hand, please. Raise your. Any other? Bacillus cereus. So Bacillus cereus is the right answer. So give good round of applause for Dr. Ashwini Swan ma'am. Thank you ma'am. So third question is cholera can be diagnosed by stool overseas examination.
Dark field microscopy. Dark field.
So that's the right answer. Big round of applause for him also. Dark field microscopy is the right answer. Next question is first line of therapy in acute diarrhea is. First line of therapy in acute diarrhea. Rehydration. फोर्थ में आप लिख नहीं ओनली 4 क्वेश्चन
ऐसा है आपको कमिटी करना चाहिए एग्जाम में बेटर देन एग्जाम में
वैसे ये बताएं हमको तो दिख ही नहीं तुम
मैं इसीलिए ऑप्शन पढ़ रहा था सर ऑप्शन पढ़ने से पहले लोग बता दे रहे हैं